again, this has come up multiple times today, is this importance and really opportunity when we have snow rangers, whether they're staff or volunteers out on the ground, to collect data while they're out there. The Outdoor Industry Association was estimating that 20% increase, you know, this is based on gear sales and things in backcountry winter use. We heard Ari mention a 25% increase in people taking avalanche courses, the majority of those being Rec 1 and kind of folks that are probably new to the backcountry. And I think, you know, over time we've just had anecdotal reports on user numbers, at least in most of the places that I've been, you know, associated with or familiar with in Colorado. And I think part of that is just traditional monitoring methods maybe don't work in the winter. And so I think, you know, thinking about that carefully and trying to figure out how we can do a better job of monitoring, knowing that, you know, trail counters probably aren't going to work quite the same way as they do in the summer, right? You've got issues with where you place them in order to capture people that are potentially accessing, you know, kind of from a more dispersed area, snow conditions, right, getting buried in snow or getting covered in by the plows and things like that. So, you know, placement of those automated monitoring devices is just a lot harder. We do, you know, I do know of some programs, particularly over in the Crested Butte area, where they're using cameras, kind of like game cameras, to capture visitor use. But a lot of that has to happen on their winter roads, right? The roads that are kind of plowed and open enough that they can place a camera and it can be maintained through the winter. And I think we talked about this a little bit. It'll be really interesting, I think, at the end of this year to look at the correlation in use numbers and avalanche incidents. And, you know, it's not necessarily causal, but I would be real interested to learn more about that relationship. So hopefully Ari and other folks that are doing that kind of research can share with us what they find. So, you know, with all these kind of challenges and constraints around how we maybe would do automated visitor use monitoring, CMC has been working on a bigger program to address this and other just data collection issues in the field. You know, we know with limited staff and limited resources, the agency is just, you know, it's hard to have people out on the ground, right? And so what we ended up creating was a mobile app. We call it CMC RIMS. It stands for Recreation Impact Monitoring System. And it's really meant to help kind of crowdsource some of this information to use for land management planning. So it is oriented towards land managers. It's not a recreation app. I'm not going to open it to go look and figure out where to go skiing or hiking or mountain biking for the day. The data is kind of curated for management uses. And essentially the way it works is a user logs in. We actually have a training that they can go through to get full access to the app, but they can create an assessment, and each one of those assessments is geolocated. So they drop a pin and then can answer a series of surveys and questions and drop downs. They can add notes and photos about the different issues that they're seeing out in the field. And makes it really, you know, we want to really capture a complete picture of what is going on, knowing that, you know, as a land manager, having, you know, pictures and kind of objective data is going to be really helpful in your management decisions or stewardship plans, that sort of thing down the road. I'm going to focus on the visitor use assessment because I think, you know, for winter use, that's kind of the most applicable. But we do have a signs and facilities assessment, a trail assessment, a dispersed camping assessment, and other types of data in the app. So feel free to check it out and look at it a bit more. But specifically to the visitor use assessment, you know, we have basically people encounters and vehicle encounters. So we break people encounters down by user types. You can also add information about dogs, whether they're on or off leash, different types of technology, if you're seeing drones or e-bikes, that sort of thing out in the field. And then that parking assessment too, which again, you know, for a lot of these winter recreation areas is really key in understanding, not only, you know, how full the lots are and where people are parking within the lot itself, but then actually where people are parking illegally or where they shouldn't be parking. And I think, you know, for plowing implications and all those sorts of things, it's really helpful to have those photos and pictures and understanding where that overflow is happening from a parking perspective. Just a couple of screenshots from the app. So the first one, you can see the different types of assessments that you can do. So as soon as you hit that plus button, you get this list and you can decide if you want to do that visitor use assessment, then you would see the next screen. The app automatically pulls your GPS points, your GPS location, and it'll work offline. So obviously if you're in the backcountry and you're in a place without cell service, the app will still grab your location, save all of the information remotely, and then you can sync it up when you get back into cell service. So again, questions on people, dogs, stock, technology, vehicles. We do have a specific winter activities section for people, so we can get pretty granular in the type of backcountry use that we're seeing out in the field. And then of course the parking, we also distinguish between vehicles with trailers, without trailers, empty parking spaces. We even have drop downs for different states. So if you want to do an analysis of, you know, in Colorado, it's how many Colorado plates and how many Texas plates are we seeing in each parking lot, right? But getting a sense for whether you've got, you know, mainly in-state folks or mainly out-of-state folks using different recreation areas, and you may see different trends in different places. On the back end of the app, we have dashboards that we are working with different land managers to set up. We're just getting our Year 8 dashboard set up for our snow rangers, but also for the summer kind of recreation trail stuff down there. I'll show you just a couple screenshots. These are big picture things, and these are all of our RIMS assessment in the whole program. So we've got over 400 or 4,000 data points just over in the last less than 18 months since we launched the app. And you can see those broken out by different types, and within the dashboards themselves, you can actually click on any one of these numbers, drill into that data, put it on a map, export it, move it into ArcGIS, do whatever you might need to do with the actual data. For visitor use in particular, we're actually kind of just building our data set associated with visitor use. And this is just a snapshot of some data. We had an individual in Leadville collecting info every time he went out, you know, cross-country skiing or fat biking. He would do a count of the number of people he saw, and you can start to see, you know, we can build out these trends week by week or month by month, and even, you know, again within a certain day, look at temporal trends. Right, we're going to see our peak of backcountry skiers most likely in the morning when the snow is fresh, and then it tapers off in the afternoon, or maybe not, depending on the location and accessibility and things. So we've just a lot of opportunities in these dashboards to then kind of crunch the numbers in different ways. This is the short link to our website with more information about the app itself. If you do, you can download it. It's free and available to the general public. You can just search CMC RIMS either in the Google Play or the App Store and download it for free. That's, you know, our biggest thing is we want to make sure that volunteers are able to use this quickly and easily. It's super user friendly and not overly complicated from a volunteer perspective. I think, you know, the Esri products, Survey 123 and Art Collector are pretty common in the agencies, and I think they're getting better, but, you know, our experience was that it was challenging to get volunteers using those programs. They weren't always accessible given kind of the agency restrictions on data access, and yeah, so we wanted to create something that was a little bit more accessible and available for folks to use. So please do check out the app. I'm happy to answer more questions about it if folks have specific questions. And then I also wanted to just kind of, again, open up this discussion for the next 10 to 15 minutes about monitoring in general and how folks are doing that in different places. How much does it cost? How much are you spending on monitoring each season? And what is the biggest cost? Is the biggest cost just, you know, staff time to be out there? Or are there other programs or equipment that you're using for this monitoring? And what else are we missing? You know, visitor use, I think for me, at least in the winter, is the biggest thing that comes to mind. But obviously, you know, there's other trail issues. You know, we saw a downed tree in a photo earlier, signage issues, things like that we could be reporting on. I know Winter Wildlands has done work on snowpack and snow depth analysis, and engaging volunteers and citizen scientists in that data collection. Wildlife encounters is another one that has come up recently, and Colorado Parks and Wildlife wanting to know if our snow rangers are seeing moose or seeing lynx, and where they're seeing them, that sort of thing. So yeah, I'm gonna just open up this discussion, and I think we've been doing a pretty good job of not talking over one another. So if people have questions, we can kind of just jump in. But I've got one from Jed in the chat here, and he is asking me to expand on how Forest Service employees can view the data. I'm assuming that's out of the RIMS app. And yeah, Jed, so what we're working on is first of all, you can view all of the data in the app itself. So you can see assessments that other people complete within the app. So really at any time with a free account, you can go in and look at the data. And then we're working on setting up these custom dashboards, and that's what we're doing with the Uray Ranger District, where they would actually have an individual login to one of these dashboards. The data is clipped down to just show their ranger district, right? They don't want to look at all of Colorado data. They just want, their local information. And then we can set up those custom dashboards to show the information that's really important and relevant. So I'd be happy to talk to folks individually on how we go about kind of setting up those dashboards as well. And then I think I saw a raised hand from Garrett. If you want to unmute yourself, yeah, go ahead.
Thanks. This is, I'm super excited about this app, but I am in California. And it looks like, I did just download the app just now. It works great. And I was curious, part of the success of the app is going to be how well people participate in using it, of course. And I don't know how the Colorado Mountain Club feels about, what are your goals with this? Is it really to be kind of a, West Coast or nationwide type of resource, or, and if not, what are there opportunities for collaboration with, some of the groups in the Sierra Nevadas, and what might that look like in order to make this successful? And yeah, my question was the same as I think Julie's is, which you answered too, is, how do we get the data? So it's nice that it's so transparent. It's really an awesome tool that you built. So I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Yeah, totally. Thanks, Garrett. Yeah, and to that point, so one, there's no geographic boundaries as far as using the app. Because CMC is based in Colorado, and that's where most of our partners are, that's where we focused our kind of outreach and connections. Like I said, we only launched the app about 1.5 years ago, so most of our data is here. But we are absolutely not opposed to using it in other places and working with forests and managers across the country. Right now, we're actually talking with groups both in Oregon and in Alaska about the app, in one, just using the app kind of as it stands, but also in Alaska looking at essentially recasting it. And they work with Native communities and want to really, have a little bit of a different look and a different focus, but essentially use the same platform. So we're open to tons of opportunities to grow the program. And yeah, help connect local volunteers and have them collect the data, the land managers actually want. I think that's something that we've seen too, as far as the volunteer engagement, is it actually helps to have really specific areas where we can send people to go and collect data. If we just say, here's the app, you know, use it whenever you're out. We get some folks that'll use it every single time they come across a downed tree or come, you know, every time they pull up to a parking lot. But for a lot of folks, it actually helps to assign them with a data collection plan, right? So you signed up for Saturday from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. and you're gonna sit at this trailhead and count every single, you know, car and skier and snowmobiler that comes in, right? And having those more structured data collection opportunities for folks has helped a bit with the engagement. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question. Other folks with questions or just thoughts on these monitoring questions that I've got up here on the screen. Yeah, how else are folks doing monitoring currently?
Oh, this is Brendan. I was going to say we kind of have a variety of ways we've done it. Historically, it's always been paper monitoring with our partners and volunteers and snow rangers. You know, we have a one-page document that's just you do your daily logs of how many people you saw and all this type of data. We've been playing around with the collector and Survey 123 just because they're free to us. You know, that's definitely our biggest limiting factor is just like very limited resources. I mean, this RIMS app definitely seems really cool and probably more user-friendly for our external partners and stuff like that. So yeah, I can't remember, what's the cost for the dashboard for like a year or?
Yeah, it depends on the number of users and kind of level of customization. It really, you know, for a ranger district, it can be anywhere from about $1,500 to 5,000, depending on what the needs are. But we are working on some other ways to provide that data to land managers by doing just a data service that routes the information right into an ArcGIS online account. So that's something that we're just rolling out in the next month or two here, and yeah, happy to explore those different options for accessing the data that's coming in through RIMS.
Yeah, I think that's definitely would be helpful to be able to access the data, because if we're producing our own maps and stuff like that, to be able to show trends and everything else like that, I think it'd be helpful to be able to get the data.
Yep.
And then are you able to filter the data, say like, oh, I know my snow rangers, these people's names are doing like really good surveys versus just the general public's?
Yeah,
stuff?
totally. Yeah, within the dashboards, you can essentially filter on any metric within the app, right? So you can you can do a geographic filter, you could do a user filter and just say, yep, I only want to see data from these 5 people because that's you know, we know it's good data. So yeah, great question. I hear Kelly's brand new baby in the background.
Oh, sorry, I thought I was on mute.
No, you're good. Any other questions or thoughts on monitoring?
Not really a question, and not necessarily about monitoring, but maybe just because you've been the one to convene this, you guys could kind of be the clearinghouse looking forward, kind of in just to add to Garrett's question, you know, how do we take all this data, move it out of the app, synthesize it in a way that we can use more broadly? And I'd certainly like to volunteer Winter Wildlands Alliance to participate in that. Doing some high-level studies once we've collected a bunch of data, I think will be super useful.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the coolest things that, you know, we've seen with, say, the trails data or the campsite data, is you can roll it up at multiple different levels, right? And I think that's been the challenge with like forest visitor use monitoring that happens every 5 years, and you get a stat for the forest on the overall kind of, you know, guesstimate of users However, it's really hard to get that local granular trailhead data, right? And so we're hoping with RIMS to be able to do a bit of both, right? To have that really more focused site-specific information, but then also roll it up at a district level, a forest level, a region level, or even a national level to look more broadly. So yeah, posted on that. Excellent.
Julie, I have a different question. If I may, is there a summer kind of version of this as well that CMC is working with?
Yeah, so in the RIMS app itself, it includes both summer and winter. And if you just downloaded the app, you won't see the trails assessments until you go through the training, which there's links on the website for that. It's like a 20-minute video. But yeah, we have the trail assessment, the campsite assessment, the signs and facilities assessment that are kind of oriented more towards summer uses.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, this is an amazing tool, and I think the opportunity for us to share it out amongst multiple partner groups is enormous. But does that like freak you out or anything? Like if we start having widespread participation, are we going to break it?
Yeah, no, not at all. I'd love to talk offline with you about how we can coordinate it, and just make sure we're doing it in a way that meets your guys' needs. And we've got the capacity to support it. So.
Okay, great. We'll follow up.
Awesome.
Yeah, Julie, I was just gonna give a plug for our district and how it's been used in both winter and summer. We have several nonprofits, the Great Old Broads, Uray Trail Group, in the summertime utilizing it. And so Julie's helped put on those courses to teach people how to use it. And so it's broken out for agency folks and for other groups to enter that information. I see it as valuable for one, I don't know if you've mentioned this, Julie, but you just also talked to our local state grants and programs as far as for summer and winter. So being able to actually have numbers show that, have pictures, it's just very easy for us to access. So I find it super helpful so far in our district, and it's in the early stages. Cricket was just telling me last winter there's some glitches, but it's continuing to grow. And as a survey 1, 2, 3, like I've tried to work with our folks here, and that just is a huge process of like what questions we can even ask visitors. So yeah, it's been super beneficial for both summer and winter on our district so far.
Thanks, Caleb. Most of this afternoon's discussion is really about partnerships and how we work with different user groups and guides and other folks that are in the backcountry, how we communicate with them, how we communicate with the general public, and what resources we can share. And again, we've touched on this in various ways over the course of the day, but we're going to hear from a few folks to tell us just a little bit more specifically about their programs, and and a lot of time for questions and discussions kind of throughout the rest of this afternoon. So to kick it off, we have Janelle, and she's associated with the Colorado Snowmobile Association and lives in Creed here in Colorado, and has just a long history of being involved both in summer and winter motorized recreation, has sat on our state trails committee. And yeah, Janelle, if you want to start us off, we'd love to see your face if you've got video capabilities. But if not, if you can tell us a little bit about the state of snowmobiling in Colorado, that'd be great.
Wonderful. Thank you, Julie. Can you all hear and see me?
Yep, looks great.
I did have video capabilities. I always forget to pop my camera up. So my name is Janelle Cuckoo. I am affiliated with the Colorado Snowmobile Association. I'm not even sure I could tell you. I'm the treasurer on the board of directors now. I'm the past president of the association. I served from 2006 to 2011 as president of the association, and have stayed on the board in some capacity or another since then, and was actually on the board in some capacity before that. So yes, I've been involved with snowmobiling and winter recreation for a number of years. And as Julie said, I do sit on the State Trails Committee as the snowmobile seat on the State Trails Committee. Scott Jones, our executive director, got his fingers in way too many pies, and he didn't have nearly enough fingers to be here with you all today. So I'm filling in with his shoes and with his notes. So we'll keep our fingers crossed that I've covered everything that he asked me to cover, as well as some things that I would like to share for you. So first, let me just introduce the association. The Colorado Snowmobile Association would have celebrated their 50th year in grand style in 2020, but as I'm sure you all are well aware, nothing happened in 2020. So 2021 marks our 51st year of existence. We were started by a group of gentlemen who saw the advantage of grouping together for the betterment of their sport. 51 years ago, this looked really different than what it does now. They really just wanted to be a voice. They wanted to be able to take their message, take their sport, take the enjoyment of their sport to a larger group of people. And they saw the advantage of banding together from all parts of the state to do so. In the late 70s, mid to late 70s, they started working with the legislature and then Colorado State Parks to develop a registration program, which is the mainstay of snowmobiling, organized snowmobiling as we know it today. The registration program was passed, I believe, in 1977, and they started then in 78 using those funds to start grooming trails. And of course, that's what they're still used for today. As of 2020, the last set of grooming applications that we got, our miles of winter trails that are groomed by the snowmobile clubs across the state is just shy of 3,000 miles. And these are all winter recreation trails. There are no snowmobile only trails in this system. They are all for all winter recreation, be it skiing, be it snowshoeing, be it dog sledding, fat tire bikes. We have a group up here in Creed that I don't even know, kite ski using our trails. They land on our trails. So of course, part of that trail maintenance and that trail grooming is they also do a lot of the trail clearing. And these are trails that are often, depending on what part of the state they're in, are often shared with summer use as well. So the winter trail grooming keeps these trails open for summer use. We come in and we're opening the trails every time we groom. This isn't just a one-shot deal. If we groom once a week, in some areas, in fact, maybe many of the areas of the state, because of the beetle kill problem, we're cutting trees out of the trail, pushing brush back out of the trail every single trip. So I think outside of providing a winter recreation opportunity and a platform for that winter recreation, we're also keeping trails open that may only see, were we not there, someone coming in once or twice a year to cut back the brush. We also, through CPW, part of the registration money goes to signage for the trails. These are our trail markers, these are directional signs, these are trailhead signs, warning signs, the whole bit. That's part of our registration program. Of course, safety is a huge part of the registration program, and it's a huge part of what CSA is as well. I'm sure many of you are aware of the work that we do with Tyler's Backcountry Awareness in setting in avalanche education, motorized avalanche education, as well as creating the Are You Beeping beacon checkpoint signs that many should start to be seen more and more. I think we're up to about 50 beacon check stations throughout the state and in southern Wyoming. And for those of you who have not seen one or don't understand what they do, they have got a receiver built into them They're a very large sign, so they're very easily to identify on a trailhead. They've got a receiver built into them. So when you pass by the sign, if your beacon is on and it's on to send a signal out, it is going to beep at the station. If it doesn't beep, you need to stop and figure out why. So we call them beacon checkpoints, or are you beeping stations? And you'll start to see them throughout a lot of Colorado and a lot of the Western United States. We've also partnered with the Colorado Tourism this year to put out some PSAs on just general backcountry winter safety. We all know that the pandemic has driven people to the outdoors to enjoy the outdoors, and many of those are people who are novices. And every season offers its own set of challenges to those novices, and winter is no different from that, and can be very, very dangerous if they're not aware of some of the very basic backcountry survival skills. And so this partnership with the Colorado Tourism Board is to do just that, to create some very basic winter backcountry survival and backcountry preparedness safety PSAs. Grooming takes up the majority of our funds, grooming and grooming related equipment. So the snowcats, the grooming implements are all purchased in part through those registration funds. But another portion of those registration funds also serves to keep the infrastructure current and functional at many of the trailheads across the state. The parking lots, the toilets, the trash containers, in some places bear-proof trash containers, depending on how long they sit out there. So the funding also goes to help that infrastructure. And finally, CSA and their local clubs, we have 35 clubs that are associated with CSA. 27 of those programs, of those clubs, run a grooming program. But nearly all of the clubs, except those in the urban corridor, have a relationship with their county search and rescue. And this becomes vitally important. And if any of you saw the headlines a couple of weeks ago in Routt County, where thanks to the snowcat, I've got this written down so I don't forget it, but thanks to the snowcat and operators from the Routt County Routt Powder Riders, they rescued 2 skiers, a track side-by-side, 2 other people that were lost, and a broken sled in a weekend. So it was a busy weekend for them, but they could not have done it without the help of the Routt Powder Riders. As time has gone on in the last 51 years, the other thing that CSA has become more involved in is travel management, winter travel, forest planning. We're all up to our eyeballs in this level of planning. On the GMUG specifically, we've been very active since the early 2000s with our winter travel plan and the travel management, the decisions that have been site-specific decisions that have been put in place since then. One of the things that back to the safety element, one of the things that we do more and more and more, and this probably hits to the core of the Snow Ranger program, is our registration funds also fund a trail patrol. Each grooming club has a big brother state park, is probably the best way to put it. And some clubs, a region of clubs, for instance, our region is affiliated with Navajo State Park on west of Pagosa Springs. And they provide a snow patrol that comes into our area several times a winter and just patrols for registration issues, trespass issues, people who are broken down, people who are maybe not where they want to be and would like to be someplace else. So these trail patrols, they come into the trailheads, they chat up the people at the trailheads, help people kind of ask any questions, safety questions, registration questions, anything to that end. So we kind of have our own snow ranger / snow patrol built into the snowmobile program. And those patrols are out depending on the use of the area. They may be out several times a week, and they may be out several times a month. It just depends on what their anticipated use is. Many years ago, the Colorado Parks and Wildlife, at the insistence of users, created an LEO, a law enforcement officer pilot. And this was run both in the summer and in the winter, just to address some of the real and perceived problems that people were identifying in motorized travel. This could, again, be whether they were off trail or trespassing in winter habitat or be in wilderness when they weren't supposed to be. This entailed helping people, making sure that people were safely getting where they needed to be, breakdowns. They went to places that we deemed at the time hotspots. Some of these hotspots were identified by agencies. Some of these hotspots were identified by users. Some of these hotspots were identified by local counties and municipalities that neighbored these trailheads. And these law enforcement officers would go out into these areas in whatever mode of transportation they needed, and patrol the areas pretty regularly. Lasted for about 6 years. It ran with a partnership between CPW, the Forest Service, BLM, and Stay the Trail. After the 6 years and the data that was collected during the 6 years, the identified issue that seemed to be predominant every year, winter and summer, were registration issues. Either registrations expired, registrations not existing at all, registration stickers hanging half on, whatever the case may be, they were registration issues. Less than 2% of the contacts that were made during this 6-year program was something other than registration issues. Because of that, and because it became a little bit troublesome that some of the reports, the public reports that were coming out, were not always accurate. And because there wasn't a huge incidence of off-trail or trespass issues, the agencies chose to no longer be part of the program. That doesn't mean they didn't carry on their own patrols, but that they just no longer wanted to be a part of that. And so that program kind of died a natural death after the data had been collected. But what that did tell us was that the patrol efforts that were being made through the snow patrols, and this was an entirely different program than the snow patrols, but the program, the service was being provided by the snow patrols, the services that were being provided by local LEOs, and this is particularly after the passage of House Bill 1069 in somewhere right late 2000, 2008, 2009. Can't remember the exact passage date, but this allowed local LEOs to also write trail violations, motorized trail violations, whether it be off trail or trespass violations. So coupled with that effort, this LEO program that CPW had just didn't seem to be a necessity anymore. It was kind of a duplicative effort. for so many other things. So that takes me back to our place in winter travel management and forest planning. Because snowmobiling is so different, so very different from other backcountry winter sports in the amount of area that a snowmobile can cover in a day, in an hour, than a backcountry skier can, or a snowshoer can, or even a dog sledder can. It's made our involvement in winter travel management very, very important, because we don't have to stay on trails in most areas of most forests across Colorado. And so protecting the areas becomes vital for us. So the Snow Patrol program, both the CPW has and the local patrols, and in the areas where snow rangers exist, becomes really important for us, one, to keep that data collected, but it also helps us protect those areas that we work so hard behind the scenes trying to protect during travel management, because we want people to understand that they were hard fought for opportunities, and we don't want them to just wither away because people are inappropriately traveling where they're not supposed to be. So travel management has become probably in the top 3 things that we do on a regular basis. Our fingers are in every travel management plan currently in process, and every new one that comes up, we just grow a new finger and put some more people on it, because this is something so very important to us. And I'm sorry that I've not been able to be a part of your conference for the rest of the day. I'm at work today, and I've closed my doors and closed all the windows and told everybody that they've got to go answer the phones. So I can't be with you for very long. So I don't have, I'm not sure if I've hit on everything that you would like for me to, but I'm more than willing to answer some questions or clarify some things, or if I've missed something entirely, please let me know.
Awesome, Janelle, that was a great overview. Thank you so much. And yeah, I know, the snowmobile community in Colorado is super active and has played a big role in access and grooming and search and rescue and so many different facets of winter recreation. So that's a big part of why I wanted to incorporate you guys in this conversation. And I think, for the purposes of our snow rangers, we've got different groups, whether they're nonprofit run or agency run from across the state. We've got some folks from California on today too. So one of my questions really centers around how can these programs that are probably you're interfacing with your snowmobile groups pretty frequently, how can they be more proactive in reaching out and building relationships with those groups if they aren't already?
I think one of the biggest hurdles is the word that comes to mind, that I think all winter backcountry travelers have, is just understanding, particularly, again, going back to what the pandemic has forced on us as far as a whole new recreating public. And I think safety is certainly our number one concern. It is the reason why we put so much money into grooming. Yes, snowmobilers tell us all the time, we don't use the trails. Well, yeah, you do. You may only be on it for a mile or maybe even 2 before you go to the backcountry, but you're using the trail, and that trail provides a safe haven home, and it gives us the ability to disperse across the board. I mean, it just provides a whole service, but I think safety is a driving force. And I think the Snow Ranger program and the Snow Patrol program, keeping that at the forefront of their connections and their contacts while they're out in the backcountry, just making sure people have what they need. Do they have a map? Do they have the appropriate skills? Do they have the appropriate supplies? Do they understand trail etiquette? I mean, that's huge. I think snow rangers, snow patrols can play a huge part in teaching trail etiquette. I mean, it's there, it exists. People who understand it don't have any problems on the trails. People who kind of forget it or choose not to use it have problems on the trails. And so I think trail etiquette is a huge part. But I think safety should be the driving force behind any snow patrol or snow ranger program.
That's great. And do you know offhand how many snow patrol programs there are in the state, or who runs that, who kind of oversees that program on the CPW side?
Well, it comes out of the state parks, and I honestly don't know. I think we've got a state parks person on the, or CPW person on the call with us, and he might be able to give a little bit closer answer. But I'm aware of probably a dozen to 15 come to my mind right off, of the state parks that operate a patrol program from north to south and from I-25 to the Utah border. So they're spread all over. But like I said before, a park may take 3 or 4 groomed areas. The Navajo has 1, 2, maybe 3 areas that they patrol. Ridgeway has 3 or 4. So there's not as many snow patrols as there are state parks, but there are enough snow patrols to handle 2 or 3 of the 27 clubs. So if you know, even if you divided 27 by 2, there's 14. So I would say 12 to 15 it would be a pretty accurate number.
Awesome. Great. And then, yeah, if other folks have questions, please put those in the chat. One other thing that came up earlier, Janelle, we were talking about just kind of collaborations and how we get these snow ranger programs up and running in different parts of the state. And someone mentioned, you know, kind of collaborative recreation work happening on the Rio Grande National Forest around Wolf Creek. But I know you've also been involved in kind of the summer recreation roundtable in that area. Wondering if you can just speak a little bit to that and how it's worked or not worked, or what you might recommend to other groups who are interested in getting those kind of collaborative stakeholder groups started.
Certainly. The group that Julie is referring to, we affectionately call ourselves DIRT. It's the Divide Ranger Roundtable, and Divide Ranger District Roundtable. And it was the brainchild of our district ranger, and she called upon a handful of people that primarily are summer motorized or summer recreationists. We have a side-by-side guide on the group. We have a mountain bike affiliate. We have a hiking affiliate. We have a single track motorized affiliate. I sat on it really from my position on state trails and just my general knowledge of recreation in the Divide Ranger District on the Rio Grande. And then we have a CPW Trails Coordinator, Josh Stout, sits on it with us. We have a gentleman from Trouts Unlimited, so a little bit of a wildlife habitat component. He's been hugely beneficial from his standpoint of although he's a staunch recreationist on the forest, he comes at it from a larger landscape view of just a healthy forest. And we've delved into a couple of small projects, just little things that we seem to rally around if something comes up. Oh, and we have an equestrian. If there's just, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a specific trail use or a specific trail type of work. Some of it's been a little bit of policy. We've developed some etiquette principles. We've come up with ways to spread that message out. We've seen where there's been different issues bear campground issues we have a problem with down here. How can we help offset some of the cost of bear-proof trash cans and educating recreationists on what you don't leave in the car when the bears are out. How you meet up on trail. How does a bicycle and a horse meet up on a trail? How does an ATV and a hiker meet up on a trail? So we spent a lot of time on etiquette. I think the one thing that we all have in common and that we make ourselves have in common, and sometimes it's a little bit harder than others, but what we make ourselves has been common, is an overview of we want people to come into the Divide Ranger District and recreate and be safe and enjoy their recreation opportunity, understand that others are on the trails, are in the backcountry enjoying their choice, and we make ourselves center around healthy, safe, respectful recreation instead of bringing in our user bias and our user prejudice. We often remind ourselves, knock it off. That's not what we're talking about today. And it's done. It's a great group of people, and we've done some fun things, and we've made some great strides, I think, in creating a little bit more respectful. And that's really what our drive is to create a respectful environment for people to recreate in, whatever their recreation pursuit is.
Awesome. That's great, Janelle. Yeah, I'm not seeing any other questions in the chat, but we really appreciate your time, and yeah, thanks for speaking with us today. And I think a lot of the points that you shared are things we've touched on and we'll kind of continue to discuss as we talk about these partnerships and yeah, ways for our snow rangers and snow rangers across the state to make sure we're engaging with the snowmobile community proactively and collaboratively. So.
Well, I appreciate you asking us to be a part of it, and I'm sorry that I can't stay and join you, but I really got to get back to work.
Thanks for taking time. We'll talk soon.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Great. Cool. So we will shift to our next discussion to dig into this, again, this idea of partnerships and communication, specifically with our kind of private industry folks who may be using the forest, outfitters, guides, and then also hut owners. And I've got two really great partners that I've had the pleasure of working with for a number of years. They normally, I see them once a year on our Backcountry Snow Sports Initiative hut trip. And I would say this time of the day, we're normally coming off of our afternoon ski and getting ready to crack beers and have good conversations over dinner. So I'm happy to welcome Ben Dodge from 10th Mountain Huts Association and Kelly Ryan from San Juan Huts. Both to, just talk about their experience working with snow rangers in the past and how they see opportunities for snow ranger programs in different parts of the state and across the country to engage with kind of this subset of users. And I see Ben, I don't know if you want to kick it off for us, or Kelly's got a little one, a brand new addition that we're hoping to see here today too. So she may be in and out a little bit, but.
Well, goodness, Kelly, congratulations.
Thanks, Ben.
That is such fantastic news. Let me just jump in, Kelly, and correct me when I get it wrong. And add, well, Kelly, you're going to be able to speak much better to the experience in Southern Colorado and the San Juans than I can. I have virtually no experience as far as the skiing experience there, other than just some personal trips. So, but what I can do is speak to the role of the huts in the Central Rockies, at least. And I was remiss in saying, Julie, thank you so much for making this happen. I wasn't able to participate earlier. But the agenda looks marvelous. And I think it's just great to have all these people basically sitting around the table At this point, Julie, as you mentioned, we just got done with a ski or a snowmobile or whatever. We're sitting around the table having a conversation. So that's great. Janelle was really good, I think. And I have a lot of respect for Janelle. Very reasoned leadership with the CSA and certainly experienced. And I really appreciate her perspective. So I think it was really good to have her part of this and hear what she had to say. She's a good ally too, I think, to long-term solutions. And I think that's what we're all about. I think that's why we're here today. It's looking at long-term solutions. It seems like an important part of a snow ranger program is to provide an experience that meets all users' expectations, right? I think Janelle spoke briefly to this as well. Certainly for the hut visitors, snow rangers help provide an experience that meets their expectations. And there's a lot in common with the hut visitors' preferences and what the snowmobiling motorized community also prefers. One thing that is different about that is that the hut visitors prefer a quieter experience. You know, we know that from all the information we've gathered from our hut visitors. And maybe what I could do is back up just a little bit as well, and just to share a little bit about where I'm coming from and what I'm involved with. I probably should have started with that, Julie. But Director of 10th Mountain Division Hut Association, have been for close to 20 years. I expect a pink slip any day now. And but for close to 20 years running the 10th Mountain Division Hut Association, I think some of you are familiar with what we do, but we operate a system of 36 huts here in central Colorado. The primary use of the huts is with skiers. About 23% are snowshoers, and about, according to the information we have, about 1 to 3% rely on motorized support, primarily snowmobiles, either to bring in gear or bring in people. Some of that is on the groomed routes that are very close to some of our huts, and for the most part, that works okay. So 10th Mountain, 36 huts, primarily designed for non-motorized use. The 10th Mountain Division Hut Association is part of a greater state group of hut and yurt owners called the Colorado Hut and Yurt Alliance. And Kelly's operation is part of that as well. Julie, you're a regular participant in those meetings as well. Again, it's a collection of the owners and operators of huts and yurts in Colorado. There's about 85 huts that are available to the public, which require over the snow travel in Colorado, and about 35 yurts. And in addition to that, there's a whole bunch of other properties which are that you could characterize as huts and yurts, but they don't really fit the backcountry hut model that well. So there's a lot of opportunities out there for the public to enjoy a backcountry experience, and they don't have to sleep in a snow cave, which some people would prefer to do. I never really understood that, but I know some people do. And then there's two other levels of this. So you got the 10th Mountain Division, you've got, which is comprised again of privately owned huts, nonprofit huts. You've got the Colorado Hut and Yurt Alliance, about 85 huts and 30 yurts. And then there's also, Kelly and I are working together on this, on an effort to create a national group called the United States Hut Alliance. And again, the same idea. It was so effective at the state level with Julie's help and with Kelly's help. So effective in terms of really just having a common voice for collaboration, for advocacy, and improving marketing efforts. Just, you know, it's almost like a trade group, right? So that was so successful on the state level that we're trying to replicate that effort on the national level for the same reasons. We'll see what that turns out to be. It might be quite different than what we're currently thinking. So there are a number of levels here, but again, our experience, 10th Mountain directly, is in the Central Rocky Mountains. 10th Mountain, we've got about 70,000 user nights per year in terms of hut visitors that use our huts every year. I sit on the board of the Vail Pass Task Force, have been since I became part of 10th Mountain, so close to 20 years. And that has been an amazing experience. I can't say it's always been pleasant, but the most pleasant part actually has been to see it evolve and change and improve. In the early days of the Vail Pass Task Force, there was a lot of, gosh, it was just a difficult process because everybody was trying to figure out how to create a situation that was long-term, okay? Develop long-term solutions. And we got there. but it's taken quite some time. So that's really my experience with the Snow Ranger program, is with the Vail Pass Task Force. And I know Kate mentioned or spoke to the task force earlier, so I don't think I need to go into much detail on that. Happy to answer any questions from a perspective as a board member, but I'm sure that Kate covered everything adequately. But one thing that we do know, one, we know the preferences of our hut visitors. Again, really good surveys done with RRC Associates out of Boulder. They help us design the questions, so the information has credibility. We know that the vast majority of our hut visitors prefer a quiet backcountry experience, okay? And in ascending level of importance, they really want to have a quiet experience as they travel from the trailhead to the hut, okay? That's pretty important. Even more important than that is the experience that they have while they're at the hut, okay? And then third and most important, they want to be able to go out and play. They want to go out and make some turns or go for a snowshoe hike in an area that meets their expectations. And so we understand what those expectations and preferences are. And our job, as I see it for 10th Mountain, is to carry those expectations to the decision makers, whether it's at the local district level or the forest or the state, whatever it might be. Carry those expectations to the decision makers so that they can make an informed decision, because those preferences, those expectations are very, very clear from our hut visitors. So like Janelle mentioned, CSA has been very involved with travel management, and that's really a good thing and very, very helpful, very useful. And I wish there were more groups that were so well organized like CSA, and the value of having local snowmobile clubs, fantastic, right? Participating in the process is so important and so helpful. 10th Mountain has certainly done that on the White River National Forest back in the early 2000s with, I think, a pretty good level of success, again, at establishing long-term sustainable solutions. And the Snow Rangers help with this because they help provide the experience that we have communicated to the decision makers. So whether it's enforcement or whether it's education, whether it's information, helping people out, a whole variety of services which are provided by these Snow Rangers, I think really helps with the backcountry hut experience. So Kelly, that's all I got for now. What else do you have that you want to add?
That's great, Ben. And I think that you've probably had more direct contact with Snow Ranger type program than we have down here in the San Juans, as ours is relatively new. But I think that that's a good overview of kind of the value for hut users and kind of our clientele. A couple other things that kind of just a more broad scale that I wanted to add is I think that the main purpose that I see for Snow Rangers is to be proactive in kind of solving user problems, as they come up or before they come up. And I think in the San Juans, we're pretty lucky, at least in the northern San Juans, that we've have dispersed enough use right now that there's not a lot of conflict, but that likely won't stay that way forever as we see more and more use in the forest. And I think right now with our kind of forest planning process that is going on, I think there's a big opportunity there for Snow Rangers to really assess what use is best and how the terrain is currently being used, and really kind of protecting the most vital areas for the various user groups. So whether that be snowmobiling on the Uncompahgre Plateau, historically that's been high snowmobile use area with relatively minimal backcountry use, or like for us, the northern San Juans, where our huts are, and Red Mountain Pass is historically a pretty backcountry skier intensive use. So I think the Snow Rangers can really kind of help identify those key spots and then help bring that to the Forest Service as these planning processes go through. Particularly, I think the way not all, but the Snow Ranger project has been set up down here, where there is a partnership with the Forest Service. I think that there's opportunity for that to kind of help create the staffing needed to really observe the user
preference as far as terrain right now. And then I also see the snow ranger positions as being an opportunity to look for ways where we can collaborate with various user groups. And one instance for us has been on the Highway Plateau, the Snowmobile Association in our area has groomed that, and we've kind of used their website and grooming to go out and fat bike in that area. And so I think the more kind of opportunities that arise where we can kind of use the same resources or can overlap and collaborate, I think helps us kind of build a better, multi-user relationship. And then also just kind of protecting the areas that are, really special for each of those user groups. Let's see.